So chat, welcome on into this stream to this Mal Monday. This is a PowerPoint, as you can see. I guess where is it? It's over there. We have some new things. I have a little spoiler-free thing as well. That's one of the new additions that I've had. But yeah, we're gonna talk about time traveling anime. Some of these shows will literally have time travel aspects. So like it will literally be somebody who goes back in time or does whatever. But some of them are gonna be like important, have like time as like an important aspect of the show. So I would say it's either like the person actually just goes back in time, or time is just a very important piece of the story that like you could not tell this story without time. So to start this thing off, we're actually going to start it off with a bang with one of the top rated time travel shows, and we're going to have a guest as well. You can introduce yourself.
Hi, Fruited. Thanks for having me on your Mal Monday.
Of
I'm
course.
WeDoRepairs. Nice to see y'all.
Yeah, it's WeDoRepairs from chat. I'm sure y'all know WeDoRepairs. Always here around, just chatting around, doing all these different kinds of things. What kind of things do you do with your stream repairs?
I play mostly Fire Emblem. It's mostly a Fire Emblem channel, but we do other
True.
things sometimes. We do Sporkle quizzes. We play The Sims. And I also post dance videos, dance covers from Persona to YouTube. That's my other
Mm-hmm.
main thing that I do.
Mm-hmm. Go support
Oh,
repairs.
thanks.
Because we're gonna be working together. We're gonna talk through this particular show, and it'll be good. We'll start off with this one, which is Steins Gate. It's
Hey.
Steins Gate, everybody. So let me throw the poll up. So let's talk a little bit about some of the basic stuff. So repairs. Who do you think are the best characters from this show? If you had to give me a list.
Ooh, if I had to give you my top 3,
Mm,
I think we have to put Okabe at number 1. I
yeah,
think Okabe
fair,
is
fair.
such a fascinating character, and he obviously, like, he's the main guy, so he gets the most character development
Mm-hmm,
throughout the
mm-hmm.
show. But my heart really belongs to Makise Kurisu,
All right, sure,
my
sure.
first true anime waifu.
Mm,
Um,
okay,
love
okay.
her. And I guess number 3 would probably be Ferris. Ferris?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah. What
Ferris?
about you? Oh, Ferris? I like her personality. I think she's real cute.
That's
I
fair.
kind of want to like be her.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, Ferris is great. Ferris is kind of underrated, I think, in a lot of ways, just because Ferris is important in some aspects, and like definitely like I guess more with Okabe and just kind of like making sure that he's kind of following his passions, I suppose. Um, but yeah, Ferris is an interesting one to throw in here for sure. The ones that I have listed here, I couldn't go with just 3, unfortunately. I went with 4. I guess technically
Sure.
5 later too, but I have Suzuha. I think Suzuha is fantastic. Daru, I think is pretty good. I think there are a lot of things that make him kind of unlikable, but in general, I think he is very likable and does a lot of great things for the story. I think Makise, as you said, is also fantastic, and like almost you can't have Makise without Okabe, and you can't have Okabe without Makise, and I think just having both of them in the top spots is like absolutely like warranted. So I think that's a good list of characters, and we'll talk more in depth about them too, I'm sure. Let's also talk about openings and endings. I don't know if you've recently listened to the ending theme, but I know you were listening, or like you have listened to the opening recently, which I'm gonna put on
Oh,
stream as well.
yes. Oh, yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
which it's so good. What a
It's so
great
good.
opening. Let
You know,
me.
Kaneko Ito, the singer for Hacking to the Gate, she does openings for, I think, all of the Steins Gate related animes and all of the visual novels as well.
Oh
So
really?
yeah, she's like a science adventure staple.
Oh my gosh. Talking about the drop. The drop is peak. The drop is so good. Yeah. So opening I think is definitely better than the ending theme. The ending theme is not bad.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine, and I think it does its job. It is one of those ones where I think people really do like it, but I think the opening just is the star of the show here.
Definite agree.
So right now, chat is between a 7 and an 8 and a 9 and a 10. If you had to break this tie, Which group do you think it would be? Do you think it would be the 9 out of the 10 or the 9-10, or do you think it would be the 7 to 8 group?
Ooh, that's tough. I think most people would probably put it in the 7 to 8 above
Okay.
the 9 to 10, but my vote did go for 9 to 10.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm a
I
good tiebreaker.
I'll put it in 7 to 8 for this one. We'll
Okay.
just have Chad do that, which is, Chat does what Chat does. If it's an 8 out of 10, it's the best 8 out of 10. Oh, yeah. That's totally fair. So how did you watch this show, Repairs? Did you watch it in sub or did you watch it in dub?
I watched it in dub.
Okay.
Major Milkshake is the person who introduced me to Steins Gate. He's
Oh,
in
okay.
chat.
Okay.
So, like my IRL BFF.
Mhm.
So he's the person that got me into dubbed anime specifically as
Okay.
well. Like when I was growing up, I watched everything subbed
Mm-hmm.
because like I don't know, that was what was available back
Sure.
in middle school. But I think the Steins Gate dub is one of the best anime dubs out
Mhm.
there, in my personal opinion.
I wanted to watch it in dub. I could not find it. I don't know if there's a
Really?
current service that has it, but like I checked on Hulu, I checked on Crunchyroll, and I couldn't seem to find it. I could also just be dumb and just couldn't find it. But I have not watched the dub. I've fully watched it in sub, but I think they do a great job either way. And like I know some of the actors who are there. Like I know Okabe is J. Michael Tatum, who is
Mm-hmm.
Ervin from AOT, or who else? A couple other people. So I know like that cast is pretty stacked. So
Oh
I
yeah.
could see them doing a really good job there. I've always wanted to see it in dub. I just have not been able to find it.
Well, if you ever need to borrow my DVD box set with the dub and the sub, I got you taken care of.
When I watch it again for the third time, I think that's what we'll do. Yes, you think you saw it in the high seas back then? Yes, sailing the 7 seas. I understand. And where you guys can watch this, I believe it's on Crunchyroll / Funimation and Hulu. And where I heard about this first was by a friend's recommendation. I don't think I'd ever heard about this show, and then someone was like, "Oh, you should watch this." And I'm assuming that's how you found it too, Repairs.
Yeah, I watched it with Major Milkshake. I feel like it's one of those shows that if you aren't introduced to it by somebody, you're just going to read the title and it's going to sound like word salad and it's
Yeah,
not going to catch your interest.
but
I feel like you really have to recommend it to somebody.
it is a weird title, especially because like it's based on a video game, or I guess like more of like a visual novel type video game, and so it's like it's the name of the show is very weird for sure, and it kind of is a misnomer, but at the same time I don't think it is. But it is an interesting name. And it looks like chat has voted that this is an 8. But so let's talk about the synopsis of Steins Gate. We're going to try to keep this to spoiler-free stuff for now. As you can see in the top left, we have spoiler-free, so try not to talk spoilers for now. Chat as well, this goes for you. I know you guys. But the synopsis of episode 1 is that there is a self-proclaimed mad scientist, Rintaro Okabe, who sets out on a journey to discover a way to time travel after he goes to a lecture and discovers the corpse of a famous science prodigy. I think that's a good synopsis. I kind of worked with you on this. I don't know if there's anything else to add or anything to kind of change there, but I think it's a good synopsis.
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. That's if something in there is going to hook you, it's in that sentence.
Yeah. I mean,
I
it's
think
also like there's more to it. It's just I don't want to spoil it too much.
it does get spoiler heavy kind of quick.
Very
So,
quickly. Very quickly. There are about 24 episodes. I think there's 2 OVAs in a movie, which
mhm.
personally I have not seen the movie, so I guess I'm not fully caught up.
You
But
know, I watched it. It was kind of forgettable, you know.
yeah, yeah, that's what I heard. Is
I
it's like
think I think you can get a complete experience without watching it.
yeah, I think even without the OVAs, you can probably get the full experience too. Like I think it's
Mhm.
just like if you really like these shows, you should watch them. But like in general, it's probably just like you probably don't have to. But yeah, would I rewatch it? I did, but I would definitely do it again. I'm assuming you would too, Repairs.
Up until 2023, I did a yearly rewatch.
Really?
Not gonna lie,
Wait, so
I did.
why did you stop?
You know, just this year I don't know, I just didn't get around to it.
Just didn't get around to it. Yeah, that was me
I guess not.
with one of my favorite shows. I did a yearly rewatch, and I didn't do it last year either. Must be the Will of Steins Gate.
The Will of Steins Gate.
But yeah, so I think it's definitely worth a rewatch, and especially like if you've watched the series once, you should give it another watch because of all the stuff that like kind of is learned throughout time.
I think that's true for a lot of shows, but I
Mhm,
think Steins Gate especially, like
mhm,
once you know like the parts that are moving in the background,
mhm,
the slower, more boring quote unquote beginning of the show
mhm.
gets a lot more interesting.
Yes, and I think that's like the best way to put it is because they're like the first couple episodes are slow, but they're necessary. You need to have that information because it sets up a lot of the stuff. What if you've watched half of the first episode 3 times? You're missing the other half. The other half is good.
It gets good.
It does. Should you finish it? Yes. The answer is yes, finish it. For sure. Are the two OVAs part of the storyline? Oh gosh.
Yeah, they're not canon to the original visual novel. They are
Yes.
anime originals. So they're just fun extras, I think.
Yeah, one of them continues the story, and one of them is set up for later, I believe.
That's a good way to put it.
I think that's the best way to do it. The OVAs are post anything. I think one is, and then the other one is not. You know what I'm talking about, repairs. I'm pretty sure you know which
I
one.
sure do.
Yeah,
We can get to that once we move past spoiler-free
yeah.
territory.
It's gonna be so hard to talk about this show without spoilers.
I know.
there's
I
there's
know.
it's so complicated that it's like, oh, I can say this, but it's kind of a spoiler. Would I recommend it? I think I probably would recommend it. I'm assuming you would recommend it too, repairs.
I would.
Yeah, I think it's just a good show overall. Should you leave for now? For now, you're good. I think for now it's fine. We have the spoiler free section. We'll tell you when it's spoilers. Could you see this being somebody's favorite? I think that I could see it being someone's favorite. I don't know about you.
Oh yes.
Some
Oh
people's
yes,
favorite. Is it your
100%.
favorite?
It is actually.
Is
It is my number one.
oh,
It's
okay.
almost tied with a couple others, but it still
Oh,
holds the number one spot.
wait. So what is it tied with?
Ooh, FMA Brotherhood and
Okay.
Hunter x Hunter.
Oh, okay, okay. I haven't seen Hunter x Hunter yet. Hunter x
Ooh,
Hunter
I think you would
is.
enjoy it.
Oh, I think so too. I'm currently trying to watch some shows with my sister, so we're currently on My Hero, and we're
Oh,
slowly getting
fun.
through that. Yeah. I think that's a great list of. I like to hear what other shows people like, but I've never seen
Mhm.
Hunter x Hunter. Yeah, I haven't seen Hunter x Hunter yet. I will. I promise that I will. It is on the list. You don't think this anime is number one territory, but it is good. I mean, I guess I could see that. I could see that. New segment from last time. I didn't add this last time, but I figured this would kind of help me relay my thoughts in the spoiler-free section at least a little bit. But I have a pros and cons list of Steins Gate, and we can kind of talk about this together, repairs. If you think that these are actual like good pros, or like if they're good cons, or if they're not, if they're bad pros or bad cons.
Sure.
But so for pros, I said that it is likely the greatest time travel story, which I honestly think that it probably is. I think it's one of the most interesting aspects of the show, and I think it like actually is consistent with it.
Mhm. I can't speak on behalf of all time travel media, literature
Very true.
across, across all of time, but
Mm,
I think as far as anime goes, it's definitely the GOAT.
probably. I would be willing to say that for sure. I just think it's the best part is that it is consistent with its time travel rules.
Oh yeah.
Definitely the most competent time travel story you've seen. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. I think it's the other thing that's one of the other things that's great about it is that it leaves behind breadcrumbs, but not loaves. So like it doesn't tell you anything outright, but like it definitely sprinkles things where if you watch it a second time, you'd be like, oh, I see that now. I see they were hinting at this the whole time.
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Um,
Crumbs not look.
yeah, crumbs not loaves. I came up with the loaves part afterwards. I was like, yes. I
Yes.
like that. I like that.
This is content.
It is content. It is content. I said nearly every character is important, unique, and lovable.
Yeah. No, I think that well, maybe not the lovable part, but I think every character is important.
Which one is not lovable then?
Mm,
If you had to just at least one.
how do
I
I
guess
put
there's
it?
one that I can think of.
I'm not super into characters that are like that can't express themselves or communicate or are like so shy that it's like laughable, if that makes sense.
Ah, yes. Yep.
So the character that sorta has to communicate only through texting
Okay, yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah.
really sit right with me.
That was fair. Yeah, I agree with that too. That was the one character I would be like, yeah, I don't really like them that much.
But I see why people do like that character.
Yes. Yeah. You talk about her, but she's a walking spoiler. Indeed. Indeed. I said there's great art and animation. I think it's a very realistic art style. And the animation, like, while it's not like groundbreaking all the time, like every time that there is something, it's very like fluid and looks great.
Mhm.
Oh, they're saying that you hate shy people.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
I don't know. I don't know. It could be. It could be. We'll just have to see. I said also that every episode has a standout scene, at least one standout scene.
Sure. Yeah, I'd have to go episode by episode to like confirm,
Yeah,
but I think that yeah, as someone who watched it more recently, I will take your word for it.
yeah. I mean, maybe not every episode, but like I think in general, I could pick out an episode and like at some point there would be some kind of emotional beat that I could resonate with, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
Mhm.
Whether that is a massive thing or whether it's just kind of like a smaller aspect. And the last kind of pro that I had for this show is that it has an insane soundtrack. I think its soundtrack is like
True.
it's in the like it's background music. The background music that it has is like almost underrated.
It's weirdly memorable
It
for
is.
background
It is.
music.
So this is not my like I rewatched it recently. It was not the first time that I watched it, and actually I had a less favorable opinion of it. I've talked to you a little bit about this, but I had a less favorable opinion of Steins Gate from the first time that I watched it. Because I was like, I
Mhm.
don't really remember any of the stuff that happened. But like having watched a bunch more anime and then coming back and watching this one again, like there were more things that stood out to me. And like the music is definitely like one of the better soundtracks in anime that I've heard. That absolutely like it works so well for this show. Especially like one of the songs that I can think of is Gate of Steiner.
Gate of
Um,
Steiner.
it's just like a very simple piano melody, but it like they change it up a million different ways to fit the mood that's happening.
Yes, very much what's the word for it? A leitmotif where they like bring the same tune
Yes.
in like
Yep.
different ways.
Yep.
It hits at the right moment every single
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm. And it absolutely smashes it every single time. And I think that's great. I think that's the mark of a great soundtrack. For cons, on the other hand, I said
Mhm.
that it almost requires a rewatch, which could be considered a pro. um,
Sure, but not to all.
Exactly, exactly. But I think like rewatching it, you get a lot more out of it, like as well. So like it's kind of cool to be like, oh yeah, I'm going back through that. But like sometimes you can't just sit down and understand it by watching it once. You have to watch it multiple times to really get everything. I think. And
Yeah,
some
or
people don't
have
want to do that.
someone explaining it along the way like, "Well, don't forget this part," you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm. Or someone could be like, ah, yes, I believe this is a plot hole, and you have to go, no, 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 because of this whole giant cross section of things that are happening, it's not a plot hole.
Correct.
I think that was something where I was like, okay, it could be considered a con. And I said kind of in the same way that it can be complicated at times, so you have to have that rewatch to really understand everything. And then I also said that some characters can feel like plot devices. So
Yeah.
there's two in particular that we'll probably talk about that I think aren't characters necessarily, or they are characters, but they don't feel like characters because they are more plot than they are character, if that makes sense.
I think that's very fair.
But there's that. Oh, and then I said the ending almost feels a little bit too quick / ex machina, like a tiny bit.
Yeah.
I almost feel like they needed one more episode, although I guess they kind of do. They kind of have more than one episode.
Yes, but
Yes, but yeah, that's exactly But that is one of the other problems that I have with it. I don't know if you agree with that or not. Yeah.
in the original game, it's so much more drawn out and takes so much longer that
Mm-hmm.
going back and watching it all condensed into what they did. And they
Mm-hmm.
do a really good job with pacing in this show, and I think
Yes.
that it's a very faithful adaptation,
Yes.
but it does feel like they crammed it all in right at the end.
Yes.
So,
Yep. I think that those are the only problems I have, but it's not like for those being the problems, I don't think it's that bad.
yeah,
But
if that's the
now,
worst we're dealing with, then I think we got a pretty good show on our hands.
true. So now let's discuss this. I think we have talked spoiler-free enough, and I really want to talk about some of the spoiler stuff.
All right, let's go.
So it might be time to throw spoilers in. But yeah, so let's talk spoilers. So what do you want to start with?
Well, to redeem myself on why I didn't like a particular character,
All right, let's talk
it's
about
not just
Moeka.
because she's shy.
Sure,
I think
sure.
I think she's very fascinating and I think she's very interesting. Would I want to hang out with her?
Mhm.
Absolutely not.
Sure, yeah.
But do you think she counts as, and you might want to wait to get to this, is she one of the characters that you meant when you said like functions as a plot device?
No.
Oh, no,
But she
okay.
also she could also function as that. I guess the only ones who don't really are Ferris and Suzuha. Suzuha specifically does like feels like an actual character and like not a plot device because of her whole shtick of being
Fair.
from the future. But yeah, so yeah, Moeka definitely could be a part of that thing of she's just there for the plot's sake. The characters I was talking about were actually Ruka and Mayushi.
Yep, I believe it.
Because Mayushi is literally there
Doo-doo-doo.
to be, yeah. Tutaru is definitely, it's great. Tutaru is great.
She's there to be the best friend.
She is there to
That's
be the
her
best friend.
thing.
It is
She's
her
the best
thing.
friend.
And then the whole, but like her biggest contribution to Steins Gate, at least the original Steins Gate, is that she continually dies.
She just, yeah.
Yeah, but Mayuri exists to be killed for half the show. Exactly. So that's what I said. Where like Mayuri kind of feels like almost just plot and not necessarily a character.
I think of course in the game it's going to be more fleshed out because it's 2-3 times as long. I think they
Right.
do a good job going into like her hobbies and her background growing up with Okabe and
Yes.
her new friendship with all the new Future
Lab
Gadget
members.
Lab guys.
Yep.
But in the anime, it sort of does also feel like this is a character who is likable, so you should like them.
Yes.
You know?
Exact. That is exactly how I feel about it. Which is, it's not a bad thing because yes, they are likable for sure. It almost doesn't feel like Okabe choosing to save Mayuri over Makise almost doesn't feel like that's what should have happened. If that makes sense.
Given that we see their like Kursu and Okabe's relationship like develop, there's not really much developing to be done between Mayuri and Okabe because it's pre-established. So like I think that makes absolute sense that you would think it would be the other way around.
Right. And don't get me wrong, like I do see like, this is the childhood friend, and Okabe would definitely have some real want to make sure that she's safe and that she's kept around. Makise has use. Mayuri does not have that much use.
She's like the team cheerleader, which is an important role.
It is.
But she helps inadvertently with the creation of the phone wave. That's what it's called, right? The phone wave.
Is it? I think. No, I think it's, what is it? It's the phone. It might just be the phone microwave. It might just,
the phone microwave. Whatever it's called.
In the sub,
she
they
helps
say phone
sort
microwave.
of.
Yeah, she brings
sort
the
of
bananas.
helps. Yes.
She gets the gel nanas.
Oh my god.
That was, the first part is definitely a little bit slower too when they're talking about the gel nanas and all that kind of stuff. But also Ferris kind of counts as like a cheerleader. She's Okabe's cheerleader.
True, she is.
But like
Okabe just has a lot of girls interested in his well-being.
Indeed, he does.
In his future and happiness.
Indeed, he does. That was also something I thought of as like, it almost, I don't know why they made this show into a harem. But it is.
And I will talk a little bit about that if you don't mind me jumping into talking about the game.
Sure, go for it.
So the show follows a very sequential start to finish. This is what happens. But the game has several, you could call them bad endings or like incomplete side endings, where Okabe has like a separate scene that occurs with each of the heroines. That makes sense.
Yep.
So I think there's a carryover from the way visual novels just happen to be a lot of the time into the way the girls seem to just love Okabe.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it feels like it comes out of nowhere.
Mhm.
in a way. Like Ferris specifically was the one where I was like, huh, she likes Okabe. I mean, I guess she could have had feelings for him for a while, but like the one thing that he really does to like, I don't know, make those feelings warranted was him saving her from being attacked by like the people who were chasing her. And so it's just like, oh, she loves him? I'm confused as to why.
Question mark?
So like those are some of the aspects where I was like, okay, it's kind of weird that it's a harem. But this show is definitely very, very good. I don't know, are there other things that we want to talk about specifically spoiler wise?
What do we want to get into? I think since we were talking about the ending feeling rushed,
Mm-hmm.
we could talk about like our thoughts more in depth on that.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the way they bring in like an extra version of Suzuha is really interesting because
Yes.
like we know her,
Mm-hmm.
we know this character, but she's in such a different portrayal that
Mhm.
it feels familiar but not.
Yes.
And I really like that they didn't bring in just some other random new character in at the
Yes.
end.
Yep.
I liked that part a lot.
That it was still the same Suzuha. And like also one of the other things I wanted to mention there too is like the whole point of the story is there are the D-mails that are getting sent out at first, and then it's like, oh crap, because we sent those D-mails, Mayuri's gonna get killed. So it's just like, you know, if they're gonna send out those D-mails, we have to resend them to make them not work, and so we can go back in time. And it's like every single time that they do that, and like every single time they do that, like those I think are the strongest scenes, is every time that they focus on a character and like keep with that. So like Suzuha's mission was, I need to go back to the past so that I can give the IBN to the future lab, and then they'll be fine, and they'll be able to crack the code and get time travel. And if he chooses to save, if he chooses like not to send that email, she dies and she fails her mission, and she feels horrible for that. But also like if he goes with the D-mail and like sends the D-mail, all the stuff that like all the character development that character had, that Suzuha had, or just any of the other ones, all of that goes away. Which is such an interesting idea.
Yeah,
Because
it's like I know, I was just thinking because like, you know, the whole point of Okabe having his future Gadget Lab members
Mhm.
was because he wants to help them be
Yeah.
better versions of themselves or like achieve things that they wouldn't be able to achieve otherwise.
Mhm.
And having to undo that almost, I feel like Okabe feels like he has to sort of betray the trust of his friends.
Yep.
You know, like he has to do what's better for his own goal,
Mhm.
even if it's not the best for his friend in that instance, because he has to save Mayuri.
Yeah. And it's the same thing too of like his goal with when he gets back to the original thing is not to end World War III. His goal is to save Makise. That's all he cares about instead.
Yes.
But like doing all that stuff with the demo, like going back with Suzuha, like going back to Suzuha coming back at the end and being the person to be like, oh, you got to do some time travel stuff. The fact that she is the one to do that, it's like she's a different character too, because all that development that she had there is like, it's gone. Because only Okabe remembers it, but like nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like she still has those parts within her, but it's also not the same sort of thing. But yeah, what else did you want to talk about with the ending specifically? Anything
Oh
else?
yeah. So there's so many plot twists
Mhm.
along the way with
Mhm.
Steins Gate. I feel like it's like twist after twist.
Mhm.
But I think they did a really good job of the story writers leaving the biggest, hardest hitting one at the very end. Because like Okabe goes back and you think this is it. He's going to save Makise Kurisu.
Mhm.
And he friggin' doesn't
Mhm.
the first attempt. And that was the jaw dropper for me. That
Yeah.
was like, but we built up all the way to this point. What the heck where are we going now? This is uncharted territory.
Yeah. And it's
And him having
especially,
to go back, yeah.
it's also super cool because like there are so many different ways to watch that too, because like there is now for me after like the past week that I had, there's a new kind of watch order for that too, because like he comes back and he gets the message from himself, and it's like, oh, you know, he gets a message about like how he can actually do it, and it's like, oh, I guess that could actually work. That's kind of an interesting way to think about it, having that and like knowing what's gonna happen when you watch like Steins Gate 0, which is also coming up. You kind of you learn a lot more about the story from a different perspective as well.
Absolutely.
About like how traumatic that specific moment was, which is I think it's extremely interesting and just extremely well done. It's a great story. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else interesting that you wanted to talk about?
I think those were my high points.
Sure. Yeah.
Another couple favorite like scenes, moments that I
Mhm.
have. I really love the what's it called? The Ferris. We talked about the Ferris chase
Mhm.
and the like in her house. The moment when Okabe realizes that Akihabara is not like like a nerd haven anymore, just like
Yeah.
really struck me for some reason because I was like, that's Ferris's whole thing.
Yeah.
How do you leave that part out? I also really like the scene where, oh God, I don't like it. It's not fun, but I think it shows the lengths to which Okabe is willing to go
Mhm.
when he has to break into Mocha's apartment and take her cell phone from her.
Oh yeah.
That
Oh
is
yeah.
raw, it is gritty. I hate it,
Mhm.
but it is very memorable, and I think it does a really good job of showing exactly what Okabe can do.
Mhm. Also, I think that like going off of that, figuring out who FB was is
Oh
also like,
God.
oh my gosh. Like they set it up. They set it up and you absolutely can like if you go back and watch it, you're like, "Oh my gosh, they kind of set up who it
Every
was."
character is important.
Every character again, that's the thing. The only one who again, like I don't think is super important was Ruka. Like I don't know exactly what their purpose in the story was. And I hope it's
I
not
think,
just
yeah.
the specific thing about their gender, which we kind of talked about this beforehand of if we're gonna we didn't want to talk about that sort of aspect specifically because
We're cisgendered. We're not very informed on the subject. We think that discussion's best left to people who understand.
yes. So it is an important aspect, and I hope that was not necessarily the whole purpose of their character. I think
I think
Zero.
no, I was gonna say I think Zero does a good the game at least does a really good job fleshing out more of a purpose. But I
Yes.
think the Luca connection to the father with the shrine with the
Hmm.
IBN 5100, that's the plot purpose, I
Yes.
guess.
Yep. And that is kind of what I was thought of. Like, okay, so that's like all they needed because you can skip that whole thing. Like Ferris could have just been the one that had it in general.
Hmm.
That was always something where I was like, oh, it's kind of confusing. But I guess like in Zero, they do kind of they flesh it out. They flesh him out a little bit more. Would really benefit from being longer. See, and that is also a thing. Is like I think it's great the way that it is. I think for me the biggest problem I have with that is just how quickly he was able to figure out like, okay, I need to do the two things of get the Upa, get the metal Upa instead, and then also how to save.
Metalupa.
Yeah, the metal Upa. I should get one of those things. I should get like a little meta Upa and put it
I
on
don't have
my
a
desk.
Metalupa, but I do have a Future Gadget Lab pin somewhere in my
Oh, you're one
belongings.
of the
I
future gadget
do.
people. Wow,
I am.
congratulations. What does that make you? Lab
Thank
member
you.
10?
I don't know. There's a few of them by now.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, there's yeah, it was do that and then like also the whole thing about like figure out how to save Makise and he also just like instantly knew like, oh, I can just do that. And he could break the lightsaber thing and have that be the blood. But
Yeah, I think Kuman has a good point. It did take him a while to figure it out, but at the same time,
mhm.
I think Zero is necessary to sort of explain.
When I watch this now, I think what I would do is I would watch Steins Gate all the way up to I think it's episode 23 until he gets the call, and then you watch the whole Zero, and then you watch you finish it off. I think
Hmm.
that's like the intended order now.
Yeah, and I would still probably recommend people just watch Steins Gate and then go watch Zero
True.
because I feel like you almost might get a little demotivated not getting to see how the original show wraps up before you
Yes,
have to dive into the rest.
that's
But
fair.
if you're like very committed and you know you're going to watch both anyway,
Hmm.
then like doing it in the different watch order is like a very fascinating way to, I guess, ingest Steins Gate and Zero.
But yeah, so given all that information, let's start with you. What would you give? What would you rate this show?
I would give Steins Gate a 9.5. I think is my rating.
Why not
I
a 10?
I think there's a few moments which are sort of carryovers from the VN
Hmm.
that just don't seem to fit right within the story, or like don't do much to further the plot,
Hmm.
and are just sort of there for fan service,
Hmm.
or just there for it's few moments, but they do exist. So I can't
Yeah.
say it's perfect. And I didn't find it to be a slow start, but I understand that many people do find it to be a slow start.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I found it as a slow start when I first watched it, but I could see people kind of feeling that way. But yeah, so 9.5 I think is absolutely respectable. I think for me, my rating is about a 9. Kind of for those same reasons. I have my list of cons over there, and that kind of is my only gripes with the show. But like, again, on this rewatch, beforehand, I just didn't even think that Makise was a great character. And like that's just kind of bad. Like I just didn't understand it. Definitely watching the show over again helped me be like, "Oh my gosh, no, these characters are awesome. These characters are great. They run the story super well." So I think it's absolutely worth it. Y'all had it as an 8? She's
I
bad for
don't
Christina.
look. How many figures do I have of her? 4, 5?
You've also cosplayed as her, correct?
She was my first cosplay that I ever put
Oh,
together.
that's so fun. Came in late, but you think 9, probably maybe 8.5, but probably 9. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. You rated it a 9.5, so I think that puts us about like a 9.25. Let me figure out the actual thing. Yeah, no, this show is definitely like a standout, especially as a time travel show. I think it is so consistent that it is just a very good watch. Is it actually? It's an 8.83. So let's just round that up to a 9. And
Sure. I think 9 is fair.
I think that's what we'll have it on. We don't have any 10s yet.
8.83. We could give it
Right.
8.75 if we want to be really, really specific.
True. I just like the 8.83.
I think,
Repeating.
that's very Steins Gate
It is very
to
Steins
have an
Gate.
8.83.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfect.
I think 8 to 9 is probably a good place for this. So I'll make sure to put that on my Mal rating. But we're also gonna kind of brush through this. We talked about it beforehand. Repairs has not seen Steins Gate 0, but I do want to talk about it since I just watched it this week. But yeah, I want to brush on Steins Gate 0. We're gonna talk about it just kind of briefly. Repairs has played the visual novel, and I have only watched the show. So it'll be interesting to kind of figure out like what the difference is. If Steins Gate isn't a 10, who knows if there's a title here that will be. I mean, I get a veto, so I know for a fact I'm going to veto something, I'm sure. So Steins Gate 0. Any sort of changes to your best character list?
I would probably I might bump Mayuri up into spot number 3
Okay, all right.
instead of Ferris.
Fair enough.
And I think the new characters that are introduced in Zero that aren't in the original
Mhm.
show game, I think they're interesting, but I don't think any of them knock out any of the previous placed members that I have.
Gotcha.
So, what do
yeah,
you think?
I basically said kind of the same thing as like I keep everybody in my top 4 still, but I also added Maho to the list. So Maho's the
Oh yeah.
researcher. I think she's super well done. A very cool kind of like rivalry thing that she talked about.
Ahu is very interesting.
Very interesting.
I think she was a good addition.
Yes, I agree. And then yeah, I thought about adding Mayuri because Mayuri has a lot of development in this too. They give Mayuri and they give Ruka a lot of development throughout this particular series, which is nice.
Yeah, and I feel like Daru also has a lot of chances to shine.
Yes, Daru also has a lot, which is also why I have Daru in there because I don't know. I love him. I think he's great. I understand some people don't like him because he's a little perverse. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but
which is like a common anime trope. So like if you're used to anime, you understand.
Yes.
But if you're not, it's a difficult starter anime for that reason, I think.
And then you haven't heard the openings or the endings, have you?
I'm sure I have at some point. It's what's the opening called?
I think it's Fatima. I don't know. I
Okay.
always say Fatima.
I've heard it, but I've not played it on heavy repeat like I have Hacking to the Gate.
Are there any other games, by the way? I'm so confused by the Steins Gate lore about like what games there are.
let me break it down for you.
Please.
So Steins Gate is part of a series called Science Adventure, is like the overarching term.
Okay.
And they all have semicolons in the names. So I jokingly call it the semicolon saga, but that's
Okay.
not what
Okay.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
called.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like Chaos Head, Robotics Notes, Anonymous Code is the most recent like game that just came out. And it is the first science adventure game to have an English dub in the game. And apparently it's a pretty well done dub. So if you are
Interesting.
interested in trying out a visual novel, you might really like Anonymous Code.
Yeah. I need to.
Um,
I didn't know it
yeah.
was a whole series. I thought it was literally just Steins Gate.
Yeah, and I will say they all like take place in the same sort of universe to an extent, but
Okay.
there's and occasionally like one character from one will be referenced in another,
Sure.
but they're all pretty separate
So it's Chaos Head, Steins Gate, Robotic Notes, Chaos Child, Steins Gate 0, Cultic 9, Anonymous Code.
in that order.
Interesting. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. That's so, yeah. I literally just thought it was Steins Gate. Because
Yeah.
is that the only one that's
As
had
far
an
as anime
anime?
goes, Chaos Head, Chaos Child, and Robotics Notes have had animes. Robotics
They
Notes anime,
have.
I didn't finish it myself. I hear it's worth watching, but the game is better. As far as Chaos Head and Chaos Child go, you don't have to watch the anime. It's fine. They're very skippable. I
Yeah.
would say they don't do the game justice.
And I'm assuming they're all kind of, like, they're science stories, so it's not going to be the same thing of, like, the time travel aspect.
They're not all time travel. One is about like oh god, I don't even know how I would explain Chaos Head. Robotics Notes is about like mechas and
Oh,
robots
fun.
and stuff. So there's like that kind of, you know, aspect to it.
Yeah.
Chaos
Oh,
Head and Chaos Child are just weird psychology ones, I think.
but yeah, I'm super curious about how those work, but like we'll kind of keep it on to 0. So I think that like Steins Gate Zero's opening is probably the best, and then I think its endings are all right. I think the last ending that it shows is just kind of like eh. But the first one is pretty good. The first one is pretty spot on. But it's also funny because I think my favorite opening from like the whole show was when they replayed Hacking to the Gate.
I mean, yeah. It's
The one
a
episode
it's
where
a
they
it's a
did that.
standout song.
So I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those things. So personally, I don't think it's as strong as the original show, but I think Zero's openings are still good. I think the opening and the endings are still pretty good, and they actually have like a different
Mhm.
opening too. Like when you get to a certain point in the show, it has the same song, it just has different visuals.
Oh yeah, I love
Um,
when shows do that.
yeah, it's always super cool. But yeah, so I think that's kind of how it is. You've only heard this in sub since I think the game you said it was only subbed, correct?
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
I also watched this in sub. I think it's the same. I think it's the same cast, and the cast does a fantastic job just in general.
I once participated in a German fan dub of the first episode of
Do you
Steins Gate
speak
Zero.
German?
No, I sure don't.
So you just did it. You were just doing it. Wait, why'd you do it then? What?
I had a friend who's from Austria who wanted to make a German fan dub with
Oh,
her
that's so
friends, and I
sick.
think I think yeah, I got to hop on with my terrible American German accent.
Did you play Leskinen?
No, I think it was either Kurisu or I think I was Kurisu or
Oh,
Maho. I
okay,
don't remember.
okay,
I don't remember. We were
okay.
gonna do an English fan dub too. Human was gonna be Ferris, but then it ended up
Oh,
getting a dub, so we didn't finish it.
I see, I see. I probably would have been a Daru. It looks like it's a 9 to 10. People are saying it's a 9 to 10. But yeah, where you can watch this, I watched this on Crunchyroll Funimation. I think that's the only places that it's available, but I could be wrong. But from my research, that is all that I had. And then where did I hear about this? So this is the cringy thing that y'all are gonna learn about me. But
We're ready.
I do anime opening quizzes occasionally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, like on YouTube?
Yeah, oh, 100%, 100%.
Oh
It's
yeah, that's how I get through road trips.
Oh yeah, see I also do that too. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yes.
But it's one of those things where it's like my brain can just instantly pick things up. So it's like I have to do it all the time. It's how me and my roommates kind of got into anime. in the first place. So like we found a lot of our shows from doing like the anime opening quizzes. Yeah, I literally had I've heard about this from opening quizzes because I only knew about Steins Gate and I didn't know about Zero. And I was like, oh, why is this different? Why does it say Steins Gate? This isn't hacking to the gate. And so I found it and I was like,
That's a great way to
that's
learn
kinda
about
cool.
Zero, I'll be honest.
It's
That's
the only
honestly
way.
amazing.
It's the only way. But I'm kind of glad that I've watched it now because it's always been on my watch list for a while. But I think finally...
I'm hoping you talking about it will motivate me to finally sit down and watch it, honestly.
Potentially. There's a decent chance.
I watched the first few episodes, and, like, it kind of bummed me out, so I stopped.
Why did it bum you out?
We can talk about that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I'll close the polls. I know this poll was a little quicker, but we got to get it moving. 9.5 is what we've got for votes. So the synopsis of this show. It's so hard to come up with a spoiler-free first episode synopsis of this show. So we discussed this. And we said that without spoiling anything, it picks up where Steins Gate sort of leaves off, and it's a side story about a character who influences the ending. I don't know if that's like, it's, as a non-spoiler, that is what this show is about. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other things that you would add. Repairs. I know we talked it over, but I was like, oh.
If you like the cast of Steins Gate, you'll like the cast of Steins Gate Zero. But if you haven't seen Steins Gate, there's no reason for you to watch Steins Gate Zero.
Don't. just
don't.
Watch Steins Gate and then Zero. But yeah, it is. It's 23 episodes and an OVA. Would I rewatch? I think I will. I think I would rewatch it again with my Steins Gate. Whenever I choose to watch Steins Gate for the next time, I'd probably watch Zero with it. For recommendations, I would definitely say if you like Steins Gate, you should watch Zero. And then could this one be somebody's favorite? Maybe. I think people just like Steins Gate too much. I think Steins Gate is better than Zero, so it's probably just kind of like a eh. It would be hard for someone to like Zero over the regular one.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Pros and cons. The first pro is that it's a great warranted idea that is executed pretty well. So we'll kind of get into exactly what it is, but again, like it follows a character who influences the ending, and it is a good like place for them to be. It gives we kind of talked about this too, but it gives less important characters more time to shine. So like we talked about some of those characters that we felt were not as fleshed out, they got some more good stuff. Yeah, sometimes they even fill a different role, which can be interesting to see. Just because sometimes you can see them in the same role, but sometimes having like a different personality and like a different thing that they have to do is really cool. The moments still hit hard. The moments that are present in the original where everything's a standout, they still have like each one of those every single episode as well. And sometimes they're even better than the original, but sometimes they're just kind of they're a little bit less than. And then the music and animation are pretty on par with how the original was. Sometimes it's a little bit better just because it's a newer thing and they kind of probably have a little bit more budget from it.
They had 6-7 years to get better at animating things.
That is also true. I think someone said it was the same team. Cons for Steins Gate Zero: hard to live up to the original. A lot of it you kind of have to base on the original, and like it's hard. It's just really, really hard for it to live up to it. The other thing is I think it's more predictable than the original. Remember how I said there was like the whole thing about like breadcrumbs instead of loaves? This one leaves like slices. You can
slices?
tell, yeah. You can tell what's gonna happen at the end, unfortunately.
Okay.
Same studio but not the same director and stuff. I see.
Okay.
Some concepts don't go anywhere. There's one I want to talk about specifically, which might be a visual novel thing that's there, and I would be interested to hear if that is actually true. But there's one concept where I was like, okay, they did not do anything with this. And then it can be slightly repetitive. I think
like story-wise.
I think it's character-wise. I think it's story-wise. I think they because they'll harp on some of the stuff that happens in the original, which is fair. But like, instead of the story having different things affected by the choices that they make, it almost feels like it's the same thing for like 5 or 6 episodes. They're just kind of the same thing. And then also, again, the ending is also a little bit rushed, / Deus Ex, but we'll get to that too. But yeah, let's move on to spoilers. So if y'all are not interested in spoilers
spoiler time
are going on. But yeah, so if you don't want any spoilers for Steins Gate Zero, this is the time to leave. This show takes place after Steins Gate Steins Gate Regular, but it takes place in an alternate future in which Okabe does not go back and save Makise. This is the bad ending. What's
He
really
gets all
cool,
the way up to the point where he like is gonna, and then
yes.
he can't.
Yep.
He just can't do it.
Yep. It's literally like the other OVA on the original Steins Gate follows this moment. So it's literally like the honestly the big thing is Mayuri doesn't slap him.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. That is the big difference between the shows is that Mayuri doesn't slap him and he doesn't go back in time to save Makise.
Yeah, she gives him a hug and says it's okay.
Yeah,
Don't
she
worry
says,
about it.
You don't have to carry it all
no.
on your own. Yeah. So I think it's really, really cool because you see how, because in the original, Okabe has to, he is told by his future self that he needs to save Makise, and this is how he can do it. And this is that Ocarine, which is super, super cool. And they change everything. They change how he looks. So he literally, instead of wearing his lab coat, he's in a black suit the whole time, which is, I think, a very interesting nod to his, like, design, is because they always, like, mention, like, oh, he's always in a lab coat. And now he's not.
Yeah.
And he feels very different. Like, it talks a lot about, like, his depression, because he also, at that point, he killed Makise, and then he didn't get any sort of
resolution.
Yeah, he was just, like, the one who killed her, and that was it. And he just has to deal with that. So it's very interesting what they decide to do with that. One of the ones that I wanted to talk about specifically was Fubuki, I think is her name.
Mm-hmm.
She is one of the cosplay friends who looks like Chie from Persona 4.
I noticed that, yeah.
And her friend looks like Yukiko, so I just called her Chie and Yukiko for the
Chie and
longest
Yukiko.
time.
Yeah, that's fair.
But she has a moment where she has reading Steiner, or they think
yeah, and
that
she gets
has
like
reading
sick from
Steiner.
it or something.
Yes, but they don't do anything with it, I don't think. She
I
just
don't
gets...
remember exactly how that's resolved in the VN, but if it were resolved in a super tightly wrapped in a neat little bow way, I feel like I would have remembered it.
Yeah. It stood out to me because, like, I realized, like, I was like, oh, this could be kind of cool. Like, somebody else has reading Steiner, and it's almost this, like, side character who has no use. Oh, weird. And then it was like, they don't do anything with it.
Oh, I think Kuman has a point. I think
the
Leskinen
end-
uses it to discover how reading Steiner works.
Wait, from Fubuki? Wait, is that actually what it is?
'Cause doesn't he, like, check in on her and stuff?
I don't
remember.
So. Oh, that
No,
could
maybe
be
not.
it. That could be it. That's such a weird way to do it, though. I guess that would make sense. Maybe it's kind of a mess. As you said, it's because they kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He's at the hospital. Oh, that makes sense. He's friends with the
Interesting.
director. I mean, and that's also his whole thing in, like, the future as well. Is it's like, oh, he's the guy who influenced Kagari when she got sent back to the past. You know, he like, the reason that he's able to know that things are happening is because Kagari was sent there, and she's able to kind of, like, tell everything that he needs to know about, like, what his future self wanted to do and take over the world. I think that's how it was. I've literally only watched this once. I finished it yesterday.
Probably.
When it comes to that hospital, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
I don't know if I
Definitely
know.
one of those crossovers between various science adventure games.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense. That would make sense. Zero does a lot of cool things, and I think the idea is really, really cool because it's like, oh, it's following that one Okabe who doesn't get that resolution, and, like, what happens? You know, what is it that, like, he has
Punished
to do? Punished
Okabe.
Exactly. Yeah. He left his units out in the open, and they got one shot. They got crit, and it's just like,
Yeah.
he couldn't finish the level. He had to stop. His Iron Man got destroyed.
Which is why I stopped watching it. It honestly just made me too depressed to see my number one waifu just, like, freaking dead for a whole show.
Well, she's not dead.
Well, yeah, but
She's
but
a,
like
she's
she
a
is,
robot
but she
now.
isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel what Okabe feels, you know?
Yes. And it's really interesting too, because I don't know if this happens in the visual novel, but there's a point in the show where they actually go back to another, or to the original world line where Mayuri died.
And he has a talk with Kursu.
And, like, apparently himself, like, from that world line, like, destroyed the D-mail machine and the time leap machine and all that kind of stuff, which is super, super interesting. They do, but it's way more fleshed out in the anime. Yeah, I think they spend a whole episode on it. And it's really, really good. Like, they have a lot of really good moments there. I really like those moments, like, again, when they have Kurisu, I think it's good. Like, I think all those moments are good. And, like, you know, even after all that time, Okabe still has the feelings for her. And, like, the whole thing with Amadeus, where she's a robot and then he still has feelings for her and he kind of develops it. And has to kill her again in order to save the world.
And I will mention the VN portion that stood out to me the most. The way that you get on different routes and different endings in the VN, because there's like actual different endings, it's less linear like
Yes.
the anime does.
Mhm.
You determine those based on to what extent you interact with Amadeus Kurisu,
Yeah. See,
whether
that's
you respond
super
to her messages and
interesting.
her calls and stuff like that.
That's
It's
super
very
interesting.
it's very fun, very interactive.
But also I think that goes with Maho. Kind of going off of Amadeus. But Maho is she says the Salieri to Kurisu's Amadeus. And I think that sort of aspect is super interesting because it's almost like the reason I liked Maho so much is because she is very smart, but she's a character who is in Kurisu's shadow, and she's trying to do all the things that Kurisu could do, but she feels like she can't live up to that. And like I just thought that the way that her character kind of was like portrayed is she's always just kind of playing second fiddle. And I feel like it, you know, makes you feel bad for her, but also when she overcomes a lot of those things, it just feels really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on like her, or if you're or Kagiri or any of those Kagari.
Yeah, Maho was definitely the one that like stuck out to me as memorable and fun, and I'm really glad she was there. She and Yukiko, you know, kind of forgettable. Kagari was a confusing character for me, and I
Yes.
feel like I still didn't get a full like understanding of what she's about.
I
But at
think
the
it's the
same
same thing in the
time,
anime too.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
The point is she looks a lot like Kurisu for some weird reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought she was going to be, when I first saw her, I was like, oh, it's going to be Okabe and Kurisu's child. Because I also just didn't know that this was like a sequel to it. Whenever I see Zero, I think it's prequel.
Sounds like it would be, yeah.
But like, so I was like, oh, it's just going to be like her and Rintaro's child. But it wasn't. And like, I think that's
Good
at least as
hypothesis,
far
but
as I
no.
know.
As far as we know.
As far as I know, who knows? With this show, there's a lot of moments that like kind of make me want to play it. Like the whole 3,000 leaps from the future is like such an interesting idea. It doesn't feel like he's ever affected by them, which is kind of sad because they're like, this is something that no one should ever do. But it's always just kind of like, oh, he gets out of it unscathed. And then, what was the other thing? SG0, more like SG0 good ways to play it. True. They add a lot of stuff to the 3,000 leaps part in the anime, actually. The VN has even less. Oh, that's interesting. I liked the 3,000 leaps. I thought that was very well done, and it definitely fit the tone of the show super well. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff with this. And the way that the show ends, the whole Deus Ex Machina rushed thing is the last episode is the Mayuri going back in time to call the other Mayuri and be like, oh, this is what's happening. This is what we have to deal with. Like you have to make sure that when he comes back that you slap him or you tell him, you know, what's what. And then she goes back in time to like, I don't know, negative 1800 BC or something, 18,000 BC. And then Okabe somehow is like, I can make a video and tell them to deceive them, and this is how you do it.
Deceive yourself, deceive the world.
Yeah, but it doesn't explain like how he figured that out. It just is like, oh yeah, he knew. He just figured it out and he sent a video that way, which I think is kind of disappointing.
You know, it is and it isn't. I feel like Steins Gate does a really good job of explaining the pseudoscience behind.
Yes.
Like it's concepts. Like it comes up with plausible explanations, but I find that when it doesn't have an explanation, in my opinion, it doesn't really need one. Like if there were a better explanation, they would have given it to us.
Yeah.
You know?
I just wish like because I figured this whole show was gonna lead up to like this is the moment where he figured it out. Right? He's like, oh my gosh, this is like actually how we can do it. But it never had that moment, if that makes sense. Because they spent a lot of time on the how do we let Mayuri go back into the past.
And what I think the comments are saying is that bit about Mayuri calling into the past came from a drama CD because I'm not sure that phone call like happens in as much depth in the VN, if
Sure.
at all.
Zero
Cool.
always feels like Okabe stumbling into things, and that's the biggest issue with the story. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Instead of him actually like figuring things out, he just kind of stumbles upon the stuff. But again, I think like the new like Maho, anything that has Maho in it or anything that has like Suzuha or Daru in it is really, really well done. And I don't know, I liked Zero. I didn't like it as much as the original, but I think it was still good. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything else?
Amana Yuki is great. I love her.
In the
What a
show,
great wife.
oh, in the show, she doesn't get that much stuff to do.
Oh,
It's
that's too bad.
so yeah. This is the other thing. So I think the last thing that she does that like I can think of that is of oh actually there's another thing I want to talk about too. She basically like goes on a date with Daru, and like that's about all that she does of note.
Okay.
Which I didn't think that's exactly what she would be, but that's what it feels like. It was just like, oh, she's just here to date Daru. Is that how it is in the game?
You know, I can't say for sure, but that is the primary purpose of her role.
I mean, true.
So,
I mean, it's kind of
yeah.
true that is it. But I wish she
But
just
she's
did
like
a little
cosplay
more
friends with
Mayuri.
Chie and Yukiko.
And Chie and Yukiko, yeah.
So
I love how it's still just like, that's literally all I can think about when I see them is just, oh, it's Chie and Yukiko. Because I liked the OVA. At first I didn't, but the ending of it, like, actually made me go like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, that was such like a really good ending to it. It was not what I was expecting, and I'm glad that I watched that. But yeah, well, we'll leave that. We'll leave that for you. You're gonna have to watch the show and figure it out.
okay. I promise I'll give it a chance.
Yeah, we'll talk about it at some point, I'm sure. There's an entire fan TL group dedicated to the franchise. Don't worry, people.
Look up Committee of Zero. Look up Committee of Zero. They do
yes,
good work.
true.
That's my shill.
All right, but we're going to the debrief. No more spoilers. So in general, based on that, based on the game, what do you think Zero is?
Based on the game, I would vote it 7.5.
7.5. Okay, we'll put the 7.5 in there. I also gave this a 7.5. I think the show is pretty
Oh, really?
good, but it's not anything exceptional. And I think finishing it kind of went down a little bit. I had it as an 8 for a while, but I think finishing it, I just kind of was like, I don't know. It's
To
kind of a
me,
mess.
if it were more memorable, I would probably rank it higher because the moments that are good are really good. I just like don't have a cohesive idea of what it's all about from my one playthrough of the game.
And I think it's like the thing is I've already seen Steins Gate, so it's like I knew what was kind of gonna happen anyways. So chat gave it a 9.5, and then for the average, so you said 7.5. It's an 8.1666 repeating.
Perfect.
Oh, just like Steins Gate. This is the will of Steins Gate for sure. But yeah, so I think that's fitting. I think we keep it at an 8.666 whatever, 8.166. Whatever that was. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say. I really appreciate you hopping on. I hope you enjoyed this.
Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. I'm very
glad.
passionate about Steins Gate. Steins Gate is how I like met a lot of the friends that I have today, and like how I got back into anime after not watching it for so many years. So it's like very special to me, and it means a lot that we got to go so in depth about it.
Yes.
So
yeah. I do kind of like, I like having people on here to like discuss some stuff, but I feel like sometimes I just want to, like, when I'm talking with people, make it like its own segment. Like have my own 3-hour stream talking about stuff, because I feel we talked about this for an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah,
crazy. We were not expecting it to go this long. We were like, okay, it won't be that long.
We'll fill out about an hour. It'll be fine. Nope.
True.
We should have known that after we spent an hour talking about Fire Emblem yesterday, just trying to get my mic set up.
But absolutely, I appreciate you coming on here.
Yes, thanks for having me. If
you haven't checked out Repairs' stuff yet, go check out Repairs' stuff. Go check out any of those things. Go see whenever she's streaming on Twitch, whenever she posts on YouTube, all those different kinds of things. I really appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Even being willing to talk about Zero, which you haven't even seen, I think it's just a very, very fun thing.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. I want to give another big thank you to WeDoRepairs for coming on and talking about Steins Gate with me. If you haven't already, go give her stuff a follow. The links for her channels will be in the description below. This episode is also going to be split into another part 2, so I'm going to try my hardest to get that out either this week or next, because, man, I have been slacking on that front. The other Mal Monday videos should hopefully be done soon, as well as some non-anime related videos, so if you're enjoying this content, do me a favor and drop a like and a sub. You could even comment about your thoughts on my thoughts of these shows. Or, if you haven't already, why don't you go check out some of the other Mal Mondays too? Feel free to come by my stream too at twitch.tv/frudude. The link and schedule are also going to be in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Ciao ciao for now.